Hey guys, IT here, and this is a new series where I talk about the music in TV and films. I've always loved music's role in storytelling, but no one has really analyzed it beyond it's amazing. So I thought I'd give it a go. Let me know if you want to see more of this content and let me know how I can improve. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video. So, truth be told, I love scores. Scores of movies, TV shows, miniseries, it doesn't matter. I love them all. Scores are without a doubt one of the most important parts of modern storytelling. I really think it is the thing that gives TV and movies their edge over other entertainment mediums, because music amplifies the emotional intensity of a piece to create powerful and memorable moments. Darth Vader wouldn't be nearly as scary without the Imperial March. The Charge of Pelennor Fields would be just a stampede without the Rohirrim theme. And Harry Potter's spells would be magic in name only without Hedwig's theme. These characters and moments are so intertwined with the media they were created for that we couldn't imagine them without their music. It really does feel like they were destined to be together, which is how I felt about hearing this for the first time. I was 16 when I first heard the powerful and bombast score written by Hiroyuki Sawano, and I was hooked immediately. I listened to it to hype me up in the morning, and being the edgy teenager I was, I listened to Call Your Name being like, "Oh, this is so me!" Oh, I actually hated saying that. Then, like most people, I kind of forgot about the series for a while. The 4-year gap between seasons 1 and 2 really put me off, and I didn't want to read the manga because I wanted to enjoy the anime without knowing what was going to happen. So I waited and eventually forgot about Attack on Titan. I was only reminded of the series when I watched Giguk's review of Attack on Titan, video in the description below, and only then did I go back and watch seasons 2 and 3. And all I have to say is Giguk was goddamned right. Attack on Titan has become so much more than the action-packed black and white shonen story I knew as a teenager. It's filled with emotional depth, suspenseful character decisions, and a genuinely well-written story. I won't go into the writing or storytelling in this video because frankly it deserves a video all its own. But the thing to note is that as the series changed, so too did its music. The action music has become even more impactful, and slower scores, which were featured sparingly in the first season, are given meaningful time to shine in the next 2. This music has become something truly unique, and I think it's fair to say it has become one of, if not the best, scores found in an anime to date. So, with all that being said, let's unpack the instrumental magic of Hiroyuki Sawano. Sawano, like many composers, builds themes to better tell the stories of the various characters. He breaks up his themes into 2 major categories: the natural world, so anything that has to do with humanity or the society within the walls, and then the unnatural world, anything that has to do with the Titans. The natural world uses large amounts of soloists, choirs, and traditional orchestra. The effect this creates narratively is that it gives the story a great sense of scale. The music represents the size of the danger, the loftiness of the ideals, and the intensity of the emotions that the characters are feeling. This is then contrasted by Sawano's second theme, the unnatural world. The unnatural world uses lots of electronic sounds that are slightly offbeat to create an atmosphere of unease. You get the feeling that something isn't right, and something massive is going to get you. The unsettling nature lends itself perfectly to portraying the mindless threat of the Titans. It's a threat that's always in the back of our heroes' minds, and therefore is in almost every track. When these 2 themes are combined, they create 2 forces desperately trying to gain the edge over the other. It's a life or death struggle, and all sides are playing for keeps. To see this in action, we can look at 2 scenes in particular from Season 3. Spoilers for Season 3, by the way. The scenes in question are back to back. The first is when the scouts close in on Wall Maria and retake the outer wall, and the second is when the Beast Titan and his forces reveal themselves to the scouts. Before we go on, I just want to break down how I'm going to, break down the scores going forward. I'm going to give a little bit of my analysis of what is going to happen in the scene, and then I'm going to show you what happens in that scene. Okay? Does everybody get that? Make sense? Awesome. The scene starts with the electric theme of the unnatural. The heavy but simple beats of the electric instruments brings the threat of the Titan to the fore. You see Erwin narrate as he details the scouts' plan and their opinions. The threat of the Titans has now been addressed. The music swells and the triumphant horns of the scout theme take hold as humanity rises to defeat the Titans. This is then literally coupled with the visual of the scouts flying over the walls, doubling down on the symbolism that the scouts are here to overcome their foe. The next major beat is when Armin takes notice of the extinguished campsite. The music, which was once triumphant, now slows and it gives way to pensiveness. Armin then alerts Erwin of his discovery, and drums, which sound almost like a heartbeat, bring a sense of seriousness to the scene as Armin realizes they are all in danger. We cut away to notice Eren contemplating the past, and interestingly enough, the natural theme isn't used, but instead the unnatural theme is. It is a representation that the Titans have control over his childhood home, and until the scouts kill all the Titans, Wall Maria will never be safe. The scout theme makes a full triumphant return when the external wall is secure. The scout's theme is blaring now as the scouts are poised to claim their first victory. The music swells as Eren uses the momentum of his movement to spur on his emotions. The music begins to build as Eren claims freedom from the walls and propels himself into the air. As he transforms into his Titan form, the unnatural theme takes over as we cut to Berthold and Reiner, who are watching the whole event play out from their hiding places, waiting to strike. As you can see, the back and forth of the two themes creates a powerful struggle between the factions, which when coupled between the fast-paced movement of the animation and the flawless voice acting, create a thrilling powerhouse of a sequence that is as satisfying to watch as it is to listen to. The last scene was obviously a win for the Scouts, but how does Sawano portray a win for the Titans? Well, fast forward a little bit when Armin figures out that one of the Titan shifters is most likely in Wall Maria. The score starts off simply. A light piano plays only a couple notes at a time, giving a feeling of unease. The Scouts are desperate to not be surprised, and you get a feeling that the characters are figuratively holding their breath to see if Armin is right. Sawano then doubles down on this idea by killing the music entirely. The Scouts are now truly waiting to see what their enemy is going to do.
エレンが現れても対応できる位置。常に状況が見渡せる位置。もしそんな死角があるとすれば、壁の中しかない。 僕らが壁の中の巨人を知っていると敵が知らないなら、そんな発想はしないと踏んでいるなら、あるいは
ここだ、ここに空洞があるぞ。
Sawano switches gears the second Reiner stabs the scout that finds him. A sad and almost reluctant string instrument takes hold as the electric theme returns in force. The string instrument symbolizes both the life of the scout fading as he falls from the wall, but also Reiner, as it is established that this is not something he particularly wants to do. He was put into this position, and now he has to fight his way out. Simultaneously, the unnatural forces are now showing their hand, so the electric Titan theme kicks in. This is then interjected by Levi stabbing Reiner in the throat, and a soloist comes in to serve as Levi's internal emotions. Levi, though mainly focused, strikes with hate, and the vocalist's beautifully haunting cries reference Levi's pain at having lost so much to the Titans. Suddenly, the music becomes completely enveloped by the unnatural theme of the Titans. So much so that instruments that are normally used for the natural world are now strained. Violins and pianos are now playing seemingly random notes, and the electric guitar comes in like a hot knife through butter. This amazing use of orchestra reflects a real sense of fear in our heroes, as the very core of their convictions is shaken after seeing their opponent.
周囲を見渡せ。他の敵を捕捉し。
The Beast Titan throws a boulder at the scouts as an initial salvo, and when this happens, the music again cuts out, so Eren can give the order to get down. This makes us, the audience, hold our breath because we know that this is a moment the real battle begins. Once the boulder slams into the gate, blocking the scouts' retreat, the soloist comes swinging in again at full force. We get a sense of euphoria as there is no longer any ambiguity. The music is now at its zenith as both sides now face each other with their forces fully deployed. Without a doubt, this scene is a win for the Titans, and the soloist sings at full force, reflecting the plight of our heroes. Yet, Sawano does something interesting here. Despite it seeming like the vocalist is representing hopelessness, I think it's actually the opposite. She is proud, defiant even, and persists to sing and be heard even when the orchestra around her is trying to overtake her. It is reflective of humanity's determination to push on even when the odds are overwhelmingly stacked against them, that Sawano masterfully manages to capture in this score.
外したのか。いや、いいコントロールだ。奴は扉を塞いだ。馬が通れない程度にな。まず馬を狙い包囲する。我々の退路を断ち、ここで殲滅するために。我々は互いに望んでいる。ここで決着をつけようと。人類と巨人ども、どちらが生き残り、どちらが死ぬか。
Now, you've probably noticed that there's one very important part of the score that I haven't really touched on yet, and that is the choir and the vocalist. To start, I'm going to focus on the choir. Now, Hiroyuki is by no means the first composer to utilize the human voice to enhance their scores, but he is one of the most effective at it. Now, why is that? That's because the choir is used in a multitude of ways within the same scene. You can see this with the death of Eren's mother at the end of the first episode. Eren and Mikasa are running back to the Jaeger home to check on Eren's mother, When they return and find that she's trapped under a house, the two try to pull her out of the building but fail to do so. This is where the choir kicks in. The choir at first takes a faster pace as the Titans begin to close in. The choir now plays a role not unlike a stopwatch, ticking down to the moment when they will all be killed. This gives the scene a great sense of urgency, and you start to get anxious about whether the mother will survive or not. This anxiety builds until Hans arrives.
家に当たってるわけがない。あの角を曲がればいつもの家が。母さん。急げミカさん。分かってる。巨人が入ってきたんだろう。エレン、ミカサを連れて逃げなさい。早く。逃げたいよ。
Hans, after proclaiming bravery, quite literally pisses himself and decides to forsake Aaron's mother and save the children. The choir then comes back in a mid-tone as Aaron's mother comes to terms with the fact that she is going to die. She bravely covers her mouth so her screams don't scare the kids, but the choir does what she cannot.
俺は俺の恩返しを通す。
おい、ハーゼルさん、何やってんだよ。ミカさん、生き延びるのよ。
The scene is filled with the resigned voice that is sung with a sense of impending doom. It almost feels like a death march. Everyone knows what is going to happen, and there's nothing that anyone can do to stop it. But, like the score with Reiner in Part 1, the choir is the internal voice of another character, Aaron. Aaron screams, "Stop!" as the smiling Titan picks his mom up, and I believe this is where the switch happens. Internally, Aaron is reaching out with the sincerity of a child and begging, pleading for his mother to be spared. The score then increases in pitch as the smiling Titan takes Aaron's mother, and Aaron's internal voice starts screaming at a new level. For it's one thing to fear a thing, it's another thing to see your fears realized, and Aaron is seeing what he feared from the beginning of the scene play out in the most horrific way possible. This thing climaxes when the smiling Titan eats Aaron's mom, and then the choir gives way to a beating drum. This score is the cornerstone of Attack on Titan's sound, and whenever a character loses something, or more accurately someone, this theme is referenced. It's solid, consistent storytelling. The choir is effective at giving emotion to a scene, but what if you really want to punch it? Attack on Titan is a series that needs music that can dial its emotional impact to an 11, and Sawano answers the call with his soloists. The two primary soloists, Gemi and TL, are incredible and Hiroyuki's secret weapon of sorts. They accomplish two very important things. Firstly, the soloists increase the emotional intensity of the scene, giving the music a greater depth and a range that it wouldn't normally have. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, it allows us to have insight into the mental state of the characters as opposed to just their emotional state. We see it briefly when Levi stabbed Reiner, but it really comes into its own when Eren fights Annie at the end of Season 1. Annie was suspected of being the female Titan, and so the characters looked to set up a trap for her in order to confirm it. Throughout the whole scene, Eren doesn't want to believe it's Annie. Even though at this point the evidence is overwhelming, he still believes in the 5% chance that Annie won't turn out to be the female Titan. Even after Annie transforms into the female Titan, Eren's heart is torn. For the longest time, Eren wasn't fighting people, he was fighting monsters. This was an important distinction as it allowed Eren to kill Titans without any sense of moral wrongdoing. However, Annie isn't just a Titan, she is also a person. There is no one else who understands being unjustly labeled a threat more than Eren, and so in his heart, he doesn't want to give that label to Annie. It's a really difficult character moment for him, and one that he has to reconcile. The moment when he does so is signaled by a soloist filling our ears with a song of determination and outrage. Her voice telegraphs to us that the gloves are off and we're about to see two people fight to the death. So, we've seen how Sawano uses the natural and unnatural themes to articulate the struggle in the story. We've seen how he uses orchestra and choirs to articulate the emotions of characters. And we've seen how Sawano uses soloists to signal to the audience that the characters have decided on a course of action. But one thing we haven't seen is all of these things happening at the same time. Enter Reiner and Bertholdt's reveal. This scene is, without a doubt, the best scene in the whole series for me. It is the whole reason why I wanted to make this video, and even this series. Before I get into it, spoilers for the climax of Season 2. At this point, Reiner and Bertholdt are suspected of being Titans. The story beats are very similar to when Annie was suspected of being a Titan, except the series does something it almost never does. It slows down. We kick off with Eren, Bertholdt, and Reiner talking after members of the Survey Corps return from almost being eaten at an abandoned castle. Reiner just casually told Eren that Reiner and Bertholdt are Titans, and not just any Titans, the armored and colossal Titans. Eren, fully aware that they are under suspicion, tries to play it off like it's a really bad joke, and that the stress must be getting to Reiner. Bertholdt reinforces the idea, and Reiner agrees, saying that he's just losing his mind.
お前さ、疲れてんだよ。なあ、ベルトルト。こうなってもおかしくないくらい大変だったんだろ。
ライナーは疲れているんだ。
大体な、お前が人類を殺しまくった鎧の巨人なら、なんでそんな相談を俺にしなくちゃなんねんだ。そんなこと言われて、俺が「はい行きます」ってうなずくわけがねえだろ。
そうか、その通りだよな。何を考えてるんだ俺は。
The whole time, there is no music, no orchestra, nothing. The only sound we hear is a tattered flag blowing in the wind. This flag eventually snaps in half due to the intensity of the wind. This is very important. Flags are symbols of duty, military honor, and dedication. The flag, without a doubt, is a symbol for Reiner. The tattered flag is his conflicted sense of honor. The wind is the pressure of the guilt he feels from murdering tens of thousands at the beginning of the series, and it breaking represents the fact that he can't take it anymore. In this moment, he decides to drop the act and show his true colors. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is this guy getting so hung up on a flag in a video about music? A fair question, and to answer it, it is because to put a score in at this moment would mute the emotional intensity of the scene. Silence itself is uncomfortable, and it makes us sit at the edge of our seat waiting to see what the hell is going to happen next. Sawano knows this, and so he lets the flag act as the proverbial pin dropping in the room. The characters freeze, and as a result, we freeze. If Sawano did put some music here, it wouldn't nearly be as impactful, and that is a testament to Sawano's genius. He knows when his music is and isn't necessary.
本当におかしくなっちまったのか。
とにかく行くぞ。
Sawano lets the silence linger for a second as each set of characters gets to react. Only then does he come in with some music. As established earlier with regard to Titan shifters being both of the natural and unnatural world, you get both orchestral and electrical music playing in regards to Reiner and Berthold. God rays pierce the sky, symbolizing Reiner's decision to reveal himself, and the other characters' realization that Reiner and Berthold are Titans. This subtle and unsettling score continues as Reiner reflects on his confused morality. The orchestra doesn't pick up until Reiner reveals that he can heal his wound, just like Eren. All the while, the unsettling score continues.
So, きっとここに長く居すぎてしまったんだな。バカな奴らに囲まれて3年も暮らしたせいだ。俺たちはガキで何一つ知らなかったんだよ。こんな奴らがいるなんて知らずにいれば、俺はこんな半端なクソ野郎にならずに済んだのに。もう俺には何が正しいことなのかわからん。ただ俺のすべきことは自分のした行いや選択に対し戦士として。
As Reiner becomes confrontational, Mikasa jumps in and slashes Reiner and Berthold. The second she does so, the choir jumps back in. Now the meaning of the choir is interesting, as it only really seems to apply to Mikasa specifically. It's not intense or triumphant, it's melancholic. Mikasa would later look back on this moment and wonder why she wasn't able to kill Reiner and Berthold, and it was because she hadn't fully resolved to kill them. This is supported by the fact that no soloist comes in as Mikasa tries to kill the two of them.
最後まで責任を果たすことだ。ライダー、やるんだな。今ここで。勝負は今ここで決める。ベルトルト。
Now here's where it gets good. The score shifts gears and becomes more intense. Sawano's soloist now makes her appearance. In the situation, it could be argued that she represents the scouts, but I think she really only applies to Eren. The soloist isn't triumphant or angry, but sad. It makes me think of someone who is praying, begging that what they are seeing isn't true. Eren is holding out to be proven wrong, but when it isn't and Reiner and Berthold unleash their Titan forms, the soloist comes into her own. Eren's hurt and heartbreak is on full display, and before I point out why this is, I want to see if you can figure out what is tipping me off that this is the case. Take a listen. Catch it? The score that Sawano is using is one that we've heard before. In fact, I used it earlier in this video. It's the same score that is played when Aaron's mother was killed, the theme of loss, except this time a soloist is used in place of a choir because the emotional intensity is much higher. Aaron is realizing so much at once that it's overwhelming. He realizes that Reiner and Berthold, comrades who he looked up to, who he broke bread with, and who he shared his suffering with, were actually the ones who caused that suffering. He not only met his mother's murderers, but defended them. And now he has to fight them. He has to kill them. He's the only one who can. He knows that. Interestingly enough, he doesn't meet the situation with anger as you'd first expect. He meets it with extreme sadness. The theme of loss isn't just a reference to his trauma, but rather a reflection of what is going on right now. He's losing comrades who he would have given his life for, and he's going to have to be the one to do it.
帰れなくなった故郷に帰る。俺の中にあるのはこれだけだ。ベルトルト、ライナー。
This complexity and storytelling happening in under a minute. God damn, Sawano is just incredible, and the score really is perfect. In summation, Hiroyuki Sawano's music is truly iconic, and I highly encourage you to check out his art. He is a master of his craft, and if you haven't seen the show, I similarly recommend that as well. As an aspiring writer, I'm constantly looking for new examples that I can draw on when I'm creating my stories. So, when we're taking in this media, when we're listening to Sawano, what's the big lesson that we can take away? For me, the lesson was clarity. Sawano's themes and intentions with his music are aggressively clear, and I think that is Sawano's greatest lesson. You can't build a house without a solid foundation, and Sawano is someone who put in the work in his foundation to make his complexity seem organic. The blending of themes, the emotional depth of his soloist, and his insight into the characters comes together seamlessly to the point where you can't imagine the key moments without his music. He is a master of his craft, and with Season 4 coming this fall, I can't wait to see what masterpiece Sawano has in store for us. But I'm sure it'll be magic. This has been IT Christensen. Thanks so much for listening, folks. I'll catch you on the next one.